Okay, well, welcome to Waters Garden Center. My name is Michelle, and I will be teaching the class today. Huge crowd that we have. Today's class is on fruits and berries, how to grow them successfully, and succeed in your planting design. So a little bit about going into planting your vegetables or fruits and berries. You need to kind of know your site, how much room you have. Do you have a nice sunny location? These are the kind of the questions that you should be asking when you're looking around your property to find out. Does it have a good water source? So you don't have to carry buckets or anything like that to water whatever you're planting. Do you have microclimates that you can utilize for like peaches and strawberries that bloom really early in the spring? If you can put them on a north side where it doesn't warm up quite as fast as it does on the west or the south, you get a couple extra weeks so you don't lose any of your fruit, from frost. How big is whatever you're going to buy going to grow? If you're looking at fruit trees, most of them get in that 15 to 20 foot range. Are you going to keep them that size? You can prune them down so you can kind of create your own little environment that way. Blueberries, for instance, need some shade, so look for that if you're interested in those. For the most part, blueberries are the only ones that really need that specific shady area. They can't tolerate our hot afternoon sun. Blueberries are also very particular about their soil. With our alkalinity the way it is, we need to, if you're planting them in the ground, you need to add sulfur to lower that pH level. They like a very neutral or even low pH level. Pots are great for blueberries, so because it keeps it neutral, except for the water that you put in, because our water has a higher pH level. Successful, all these berries that I've mentioned are successful here. You can grow strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. There's several different varieties of raspberries. Grapes do really well here. Pomegranates, figs, obviously your apples, pears, peaches, plums, nectarines, all your fruits. Almond trees do well here. You do need a pollinator for those, or you get the Hardy all-in-one, and it has 2 cultivars, so you get your pollination that way. Fig trees, I don't know if I mentioned that. Yeah, they only get about 15 feet, so you would kind of dwarf them. I would put them in a pretty good substantial pot, but yeah, they will. I would definitely insulate that pot, around the base for the winter time. They'll do better in the ground, but you can't do them in a pot. So like I said, kind of know your sites, where you're going to plant. Make sure they get enough sun. I was talking to a gentleman earlier this morning, and he planted grapes and raspberries, and came in, why are they not succeeding? And they only get sun for like 4 hours a day. And it's like grapes and raspberries are not going to do well if you don't get enough sun. So that's really, really important. Her question is how much shade should blueberries get? It's that hot afternoon sun that they need to really be protected from. Usually they can handle that early morning, I'd say till 11 o'clock, maybe 12, depending on that radiant heat that, if you're putting them right in front of your house and it's a light color, they're going to fry against that. So under a tree works really well. as long as they get plenty of light, they will really like it that way.
What would you insulate a fig pot with?
Her question was, why would I insulate a fig pot? Because above ground, you'll get some frostbite around that edge because it's up above ground. It gets that breeze. So I would just put some insulation around it. Bubble wrap works really well. You can get a garbage bag and kind of put some straw in it. Just kind of create a blanket for it, just to give it a little heat that way. So planting fruits, we use our mulch. You do it just like anything else that you plant in the garden. You're going to do 2/3 natural soil, 1/3 mulch. That gives it that organic matter to help retain moisture, gives it a little bit of nutrients. It allows worms and stuff to get in there and aerate and stuff like that. Water is really important. Most of your fruits are going to need a little bit more water than you would a normal shrubbery would. Strawberries are great. You can do those in several different, you can do them in a bed, you can do jars or pots. They're very versatile as far as planting them. They love the full sun. Most of them, there's two types of strawberries. There's the ever-bearing and the June-bearing. June-bearings are nice if you're going to do a lot of canning. They will, you get a crop, one crop all at once, so you can do your jams and jellies and stuff like that. Ever-bearing's kind of one of those that you go out every couple of days and you pick enough for your bowl of cereal in the morning. Blueberries, they usually start ripening in mid-summer, which most of them are starting now that we got early in the spring. Like I said, they do really well in pots. It's very neutral if you use a good potting soil. It stays very low in the pH. Fertilization is very important, especially if you're putting something in a pot. You're going to fertilize probably a little bit more often than you would something that's in the ground because it leaches out faster because you're watering it a little bit more.
Do the blueberries need a blanket in the winter?
Her question was, do blueberries need a blanket in the winter? They're a little bit more cold hardy, so they can take a little bit colder temperatures. So I wouldn't so much worry about it. Anything that's in a pot, I like to put right next to my house in the wintertime. That way it does get some radiant heat. You're kind of creating a little bit of microclimate that way because it'll keep the soil a little bit warmer than out in the open.
Do you, there's a big thing now about wild blueberries having higher antioxidants. Is there a difference between, I mean, the wild blueberries are really small.
Mm-hmm. Her question was antioxidants, and I honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
Well, just the two difference of the plants. If you wanted to grow wild blueberries or traditional,
I would say that they're probably similar into the way they're growing.
Right.
As far as nutritional value, I don't.
No, I was just wondering how growing.
Yeah, I would say the same. You would, shade, a lot of shade, because that's where you're going to find them in the wild.
And you could grow the wild blueberries in the pot too, probably.
I would say it's probably finding wild blueberries would be the hard part about it. Pomegranates will grow here. They're really pretty as a kind of a larger shrub. These guys get about 6-7 foot tall and wide, so you can prune it as a tree, kind of a small tree form, or you can do a multi-stemmed shrub. Gorgeous flowers, so they make a statement. Whether you like the fruit or not, it's a really pretty shrub. You can see it's starting to form right here. They're hardy for zone 7, full sun for those. Blackberries there's a whole bunch of different types of blackberries. Most of them are actually thornless now, so you don't have to worry about the briars and all that stuff. And these have really pretty pink flowers, which I really like. Grapes are great for in this area because they're pretty forgiving as far as our soils go. They don't mind the rocky soil, full sun. They have a really long taproot, so that you don't have to worry about it, kind of going above ground or any of that. Training them is it's kind of precise, a little bit, whether you're going to do the vineyard style pruning or just kind of have it growing up in arbor. Pruning is good for grapes because it keeps them able to harvest. If you don't prune, you'll get a smaller crop, or they won't bloom at all. If you have more than one type of grape, they'll produce better because you're getting some pollination going. But you don't necessarily have to have a pollinator.
Do you have information on pruning?
We actually have a full class on pruning, but there is actually a YouTube video out there from last year. We had a gal come up from Camp Verde, and she did a whole great class. So if you go to Waters Garden Center on YouTube, it's on there.
Yeah, actually, if you start the list around, and if you provide your email address, you'll get a copy of the video, and I'll make sure to link that YouTube that she's talking about so that it'll be right there. All you have to do is click on the link.
Okay. So a lot of people just have them grow up their arbors and then harvest that way, and that's the way most of us gardeners are. We're not really into making sure that they have lateral shoots and horizontal lines and everything else. But that video is really good about teaching you everything you need to know about them.
Yeah, it also went into a lot covering like the different types of diseases and what to do if that happened.
Right. So it's a really good video. Raspberries, there's a couple of different, there's several different types of raspberries. There are the summer blooming or summer bearing raspberries, and then there's the ever bearing or fall bearing raspberries. The difference between these two is how you prune them back. The summer bearing raspberries grow on their second year canes. So after your raspberries will fruit, you want to tie a string around them, or so you know which ones you're going to prune in the fall and cut back. The ones that didn't bloom, those are the ones that are going to bloom your following year. If it is an everbearing, you're going to cut those down to the ground every year, and they grow on new wood. The berries will fruit on new wood. Boysenberries, kind of similar to the raspberries. These are also thornless. You treat them just like a raspberry. You cut them back after they bloom, and the ones that haven't, you just thin out for your space. Usually they'll send up new shoots, and you'll have a whole bunch of different shoots coming up for new ones.
What are the water needs for raspberries?
Her question was water needs for raspberries. It kind of depends on your site. Typically here for smaller things, it's going to be once or twice a week. Like I said, it kind of depends on your soil. If it's a really heavy clay soil, you probably only have to water once a week. If it drains really quickly, you're probably going to water a little bit more often.
How many gallons?
How many gallons to water? It's a little bit difficult to say because it kind of depends on the size of the bush. But you really want to make sure that when you water deeply. Watering a little bit every day doesn't do you or the plant any good. You want to water deeply less often because you'll have thicker, deeper roots for your plants. And that's for everything. So if you have your sprinkler system on going a couple, 3 or 4 times a week for 5 or 10 minutes, you need to look at that because your plants aren't getting what they need.
So for one that you just planted,
So for a newly planted berry or shrub, basically we kind of look at the bucket size for these. So this is 1 gallon bucket, so you're going to do 1 gallon twice a week. Obviously, if it's a 5 gallon bucket, it's going to be 5 gallons twice a week.
What about the planting of those of gooseberries? How far apart should you plant?
His question was how far to plant berries. Most of them can spread quite far, especially your raspberries. So I would plant them probably every 5 or 6 feet if you have that space. I think if you put them any closer, you're going to have a lot of crowding in the future.
I love that kind of pomegranates. When would you plant that? I mean, obviously you're buying the plant.
Yeah. Her question was when's a good time to plant? Now's a great time to plant. Typically, I kind of stay away from June just because it's so hot and dry. Getting things established during those conditions are very difficult. You really have to pay attention to your plants. It's doable, don't get me wrong, it's doable, but you really have to pay attention. So now, hopefully, we're going into monsoon season. Hopefully we get a lot of rain, not all at once, but once that kicks up, our humidity levels go up a little bit. We get some moisture, the winds kind of die down a little bit, they're not so strong. So our growing conditions greatly improve as soon as the monsoons kick in. Her question was, can you plant this in just leave it in this pot?
Yeah, if you're putting it.
No, you'll want to put it in something, whether it's in a pot or, if you had a large enough pot, you could definitely put it in a pot. Yeah.
Does it stay green forever?
No, it does not. So, I think I've talked about all the stuff that I have here. I wanted to talk a little bit about fertilization. We fertilize 3 times a year here. Because of our high pH levels, our plants really have a hard time sucking up what natural nutrients we have in the ground. So we need to feed. Ken has formulated his own plant food. It's basically some cottonseed meal. It's totally organic. And it's a very slow released fertilizer, so all you have to do is sprinkle it around your plant, let Mother Nature, especially this time of year, water it in, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to dig it in or anything like that. So we fertilize in March, Easter, 4th of July, and Halloween for those. So I just wanted to mention that. Blueberries, if you're going into the ground, you will definitely need some soil sulfur. This will help lower that pH level, and you'll probably have to apply it a couple of times a year. All fruits have pest and disease problems, and they can go from anything from powdery mildew to rust. They can get aphids, thrips, apples get the coddling moth, so there's the whole gambit out there. So there are 2 products that you should have in your arsenal. Triple action. We also have multi-purpose, which we're currently out of, but hopefully soon we'll get some in. This triple action has the pyrethrin, which is one of the products that's in our multi-purpose spray. It also has neem oil, so with this plug on this, I will caution. With the neem oil in here, this is a totally organic product, so it's very good for your fruits and vegetables. That being said, with our hotter temperatures, you want to be careful. You want to apply it at night, because if you do it in the heat of the day, you're going to fry your plant because of that oil that's on there. You want to give it all night to absorb that oil, and so it gets into the plant. This Revitalize is our fungicide. The really great thing about this is you can use it as a spray for powdery mildews, black spot, rust on the plant itself. However, you can also use this as a soil drench, which means you pour it on the ground where the fungal issues come from. Most fungals are soil borne, so every time you water, that dust kind of comes up onto your plants, and that's kind of how it spreads, or birds fly through or something like that. So using this as a drench is a great way to protect that soil and protect the plant as a foliar spray. Sorry. There's one more product that I wanted to mention. This is our humic acid. This is a product that has been out there for a long time. I always recommended it for lawns because it's great for like dog spots and stuff like that. But once I got here, I started using it on I live in Dewey. I'm on top of a hill. It's just a caliche layer and rocky. I started using this. I never saw earthwork when I was digging my holes for my shrubs. Once I started using this, I have earthworm everywhere. So it's a really neat product. It attracts that stuff. It's a highly compacted compost. So it helps bring in that real good mycorrhizae, which is a good bacteria that helps plants intake nutrients and stuff. So this is a really great product too.
So how do you use that? As a fertilizer? Or
It's actually not a fertilizer. It's more of a side dressing. It's a soil conditioner.
kind of like the sulfur?
Yeah. You're creating a better environment for your plants.
So how do you
You put it on with a spreader if you have a big area, or I just take a cup and put it around my plants. Each plant I'll put some on. So like I said, I've really noticed a big difference. I buy a bag every year. And once a year is usually plenty. If you have a lawn, I usually do twice, or recommend twice a year. So I didn't bring any fruit trees up. We have a whole different class for fruit trees, but I just wanted to kind of mention it. All the fruit trees do really well here. Peaches, apples, apricots, cherries. With those, I do recommend that you kind of, again, know your space, how much how much room you have. Apples, most of them need a pollinator, so kind of keep that in mind if you're looking for an apple. There are like Fuji and Galas that are semi-self-fertile. Cherries are the same way. You usually need a pollinator for those. Peaches and the European plums, like the Italian prune, those green gauge is the other one that doesn't need a pollinator as far as your plums go. Yes, sir.
What about fig trees?
Fig trees are self-fertile. Yes.
And that they do well here?
They do. We have like 3 different varieties down there right now. Like I said, they're all a zone 7. New trees, newly planted trees, I would protect them over the winter time with a nice thick layer of mulch on top of it just to protect those roots. Just to get them through that first year is the larger the trees get, the more substantial their root system is, and they can withstand some colder temperatures. Yeah.
Explain a pollinator.
Her question was about pollinators. So a pollinator is, sometimes you need a second tree for the bees to go from one to the other so you can get some fruit. Like I said, peaches do not require one. Nectarines, apricots do not require one. Bartlett pears do not require one. So there's a lot out there. If you're just looking for 1 or 2 trees, there are a lot out there that do not need to be pollinated. Your blueberries will produce more if you have 2, but it's not absolutely necessary. Your strawberries do not. And these are really nice to, once you get your bed going, you can actually, they'll send out a runner, and after the 2nd or 3rd year, you can actually take those runners, get rid of your initial plant, and use those plants, because the mother plant will kind of die out after a while. The rest of them, you just kind of cut back. The blueberries, you just kind of, if you're looking for damage on the branches or anything that's died off. But typically, there's not a ton of pruning with the blueberries. Yes?
You love better trees, so you, I love the context of that's more olive tree, is that? Or it is fruit. Can you bring that in? Or could you insulate it? Would it survive?
Her question was about olive trees, and I would say you're definitely going to need to bring them in. It's just like citrus. Citrus trees do not survive our winters here. You do need to bring them inside.
Maybe it would survive the summer.
Oh yeah, the summers they'll be fine. Just put them out on the deck. I would, when you're taking them out, I'd let them get used to our sunshine, our intenseness, because we are a mile high. So that sun is really intense. But it's,
And then for a few days.
yeah.
And then when would you bring them in?
I would say bring them in once the temperatures start getting down into that below 40. Yeah, because you don't want to take a chance. Because sometimes if you're in a cold location, you can get colder than what the weather guy says. Like that.
Should I be mulching my raspberries and blackberries?
Her question was mulching, and it's always a great idea to mulch your fruits, any of this stuff. Because it holds in the moisture, and we don't have to, and you don't get so much evaporation. It keeps it more, it doesn't dry out quite as fast. It's more evenly moist.
Where they're planted is mulch, but I know it's like in the wintertime.
You don't necessarily have to do that, and you want to kind of be careful with that too, because our critters that live around here, our pack rats and other rodents, that's great bedding for them, and you're just giving them a nice little place for them to nest in. If they're really close to bark, they'll start chewing on your trees and stuff. So make sure in the wintertime you kind of pull that back a little bit from the base of the tree. In any time, you don't want that mulch all the way up to the trunk of anything.
Could you talk about the root structure of these shrubs, on the berries and raspberries?
So what do you mean roots?
Do they go right out? Do they bunch together?
He was asking about root structure on these. Basically, they're going to just kind of spread out. Depending on how wide, most of the like the raspberries and such, their roots will actually go far and wide. especially raspberries. They can go blocks if you let them. I don't know about here. In Colorado, I had a plant and my neighbor across the alley had one too. And it was mine. It's like, sorry. But yeah, they're pretty aggressive as far as once they get started. No, they're due food. So yeah, just kind of be careful or put them up on something where they're not going to be, if you're in that type of area. Pretty much all of this stuff is basically deer food, javelina food, yeah.
One interesting thing, I kind of dug out a trench and we got pretty rocky ground, rocks everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We would let's find ways all around planting sites.
Yes, his question was, he kind of dug a trench and was wondering if the roots will go through rocks and all of our issues that we have there. Yes, they will. That's why we only go twice as wide and just as deep, and we only do the 2/3 to 1/3 because they have to get used to this. Grapes are a great one. If you have a really rocky soil, they don't mind that at all. They're very forgiving that way. Raspberries are kind of the same. They don't necessarily need perfect soil to grow. Just some organic matter every year, just kind of top dress them so they have a little bit of natural nutrients to grow on. Mm-hmm.
You said we had high pH. Is that the soil or the water?
Both, yes.
And so that's why you would add the sulfur or the plant food.
Right. Her question was, we do have a very high pH and it's both in the water and the soil. The soil sulfur will help bring that down. Our food also has a dose of sulfur in it, so it does help alleviate it. This sulfur does, yeah. That's kind of all I have, but if anybody has questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. Okay, I guess we are done. Thank you for coming.